Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Deanna Minich, and in this segment I'm going to be talking about the aquamarine system of health, which I call the truth. In the body, we are now focused on the thyroid gland, but then also the mouth, the sense of smell and hearing, taste. There's a lot of activity that normally occurs in this area. So on the 7 systems chart, you'll see it right here, denoted by the aquamarine color. And when we talk about foods here, there are a number of different nutrients for supporting the thyroid, as well as the throat, coating the throat, preventing sore throat. So I'll talk about some of those. Of course, there are no real aquamarine phytonutrients, although there are certain phytoplankton and certain sea plants which are rich in different minerals for the thyroid gland. So let's talk about the thyroid and thyroid support. There are many different vitamins and even minerals that can help in the formation of thyroid hormone. So vitamin A and vitamin D are part of that cascade, as is iodine. Usually when we think of the thyroid gland, we think of iodine, which is required for the synthesis of thyroid hormone. And often in a supplement, you could either find iodine as iodine, elemental iodine, or you can find iodine coming from a whole food source, like a sea plant, like bladderwrack is a common form of a sea plant that's used for its iodine amount. Selenium works very well with iodine. So you want to be sure that you're having sufficient selenium, but then also not too much selenium. You know, usually that 200 microgram amount is about the upper level of selenium on a daily basis. So one of the other things to be thinking about with thyroid health and what we can tend to see is that in thyroid dysfunction, there can be a different conversion of beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is a provitamin A compound to the active vitamin A, which is called retinol. So under conditions of hyperthyroidism, what you can see is a changed level of that conversion, as you can also see in hypothyroidism. So in people that have thyroid conditions in which they're either hypo or hyper in function, you'll want to be thinking about vitamin A levels. And so making sure that they're replete, that they're not just getting that from plant food sources, but they may actually need to supplement with something like retinol palmitate. So as I mentioned, beta-carotene conversion to vitamin A is impaired by hypothyroidism, but then also liver dysfunction. The liver does so many different things, and one of the things that it does is it converts the beta-carotene to vitamin A. So that's another condition to be thinking about. And again, the reason I'm talking about vitamin A is because it is required for thyroid health. Now, vitamin D, we're hearing so much about vitamin D these days, especially in relationship to autoimmune diseases. And with thyroid autoimmune diseases, there's no exception. So in healthy people, the data are relatively mixed in terms of looking at thyroid function and vitamin D status. But we do tend to see vitamin D deficiency in those with hypothyroid. So it's not to say that everybody with hypothyroidism has vitamin D deficiency, but it's something to clinically look at. So in the clinical sphere, it would be good to look at the laboratory measurement of vitamin D before supplementing so that you can get a good estimate of about how much to be supplementing with. And there's also, if we're looking at genetics and the whole interplay of nutrigenomics, we would be looking at VDR, vitamin D receptor. And many people seem to have a polymorphism in the activity of VDR, which means that they may actually need more vitamin D. Iodine. Let's talk about iodine for a little bit because it is such a nutritional staple of thyroid health. It is a component It's an actual component of the thyroid hormone. It also has a role in being antimicrobial. So in areas of the world where the soils are depleted in iodine, they tend to have cognitive issues, issues with IQ, intelligence quotient. So looking at goiter, looking at hypothyroid, looking at even hearing loss may be connected to magnesium, iodine. There are a number of minerals that are connected to our senses in this area. So the requirement for iodine, the amount is 150 micrograms per day for men and women, with a tolerable upper level of safety only as high as 1,100 micrograms per day. So you don't want to do too much iodine either, especially in autoimmune conditions. There's some discussion about having too much as well as too little iodine. So best to test for iodine levels and also to look at iodine in relationship to selenium, because the two do work together. And as I was just speaking to selenium, selenium is used ubiquitously throughout the body. It's not just for thyroid health. If we look at glutathione levels in the body, glutathione is one of the major antioxidant systems. We need selenium to help with the regeneration of glutathione. And many people have SNPs or polymorphisms in how they produce glutathione. So it's really important to make sure that we have proper amounts of selenium. Selenium is also an immune enhancer, and it tends to be antiviral. So let's move from the thyroid now into the throat. There are a number of different nutrients and even botanicals that can be used to support the throat. So the first three, licorice, marshmallow, and slippery elm, are all botanicals which have that demulcent or coating effect, which soothe the throat. So if somebody has a sore throat or they use their voice a lot, they may want to have more of a coating or supportive nutrients or herbs for that part of the body. Sinus support. When I'm thinking of the throat and thyroid, I'm extending that area to this part of the face. I'm looking at the nose, I'm looking at the ears, I'm looking at the mouth, I'm looking at the tongue. So supporting the sinus and preventing a lot of the mucus congestion with things like quercetin and bromelain. This is back to when we were talking about pineapple and the enzymes and how the enzymatic activity can do more than just digest food. It can be breaking down when we have too much of these different compounds throughout the body. Allergy, sinus congestion, I think of stinging nettle as a botanical. And sometimes, as we get older, zinc levels go down, and also there is dysfunction in taste. So that would be worthwhile to be looking at. So licorice, I'll just do a little bit more on licorice for you. It tends to clear mucus. It soothes and coats the throat. May help with mouth sores or canker sores. And I have found that also minerals like zinc could be helpful for wound healing too. So you can just simply use the whole plant. You can use dried licorice root as a tea, but you can also take it in a supplement product. There might be some contraindications for taking licorice, however, especially if somebody is pregnant or lactating, or if they have hypertension. There may be an issue here with increasing blood pressure a little bit if the licorice is not deglycerized. It needs to be a deglycerized form. It's also, many people don't realize this, but licorice has phytoestrogenic effects. So this is the actual plant. We look at licorice when it's raw or roasted, and we see a lot of the use of licorice even in traditional Chinese medicine for its effects to help with stress response. So again, it speaks to the many different effects of plant compounds, the glycyrrhizin, which is seen to be one of the actives of licorice. Marshmallow. So this is another root and leaf that has been used for sore throat. It's very mucilaginous, which is nice because it can help to coat the throat. So often it is made as a tea. but it can be used also supplementally. But it's nice because then you have the physical properties of taking the plant in and having that coating effect. There are contraindications, much like other botanicals, so not to take if pregnant or lactating. It may also have blood sugar lowering effects. So if you're on a hypoglycemic agent, you don't want to just be taking lots of marshmallow without monitoring blood sugar. Sea kelp and bladderwrack. As I mentioned, in supplements you might find a number of sea plants that are used as a source of iodine. Now that's great. I like the idea of having a food-based source of a nutrient. The only thing to note is that the dietary supplement company needs to be testing that sea plant for heavy metals, because a lot of these sea plants in the ocean bind to the metals. They're great binders, and so they need to be tested to be sure that they're not high in metals. Too much of sea plants, because of the iodine in the diet, can also lead to thyroid issues, as I mentioned before. And it's important that if you buy a supplement, make sure that you can see the amount that the product is standardized to, so that you can get a sense of about how much iodine is in that product, rather than just taking a large amount of the dried bladderwrack or sea plant without knowing the amount of iodine. Stinging nettle. This is a common one that's used for allergy. Typically it's the above ground parts of the plant, and if you touch it in nature, it can actually be a little bit prickly and it's not very comfortable, but if it's prepared in the proper way, it can be good for allergy. Mostly because it's high in quercetin, and quercetin calms down the allergy response. It can also be used as a rinse for hair. Using freeze-dried nettles, typically 300 milligrams twice a day or 3 times a day is used. All right, we are going to conclude the truth section, which again is aquamarine. And what we talked about in this section was the thyroid and the throat, the 2 T's, and then the truth, really speaking out, right? That sense of authenticity, integrity. And so really focusing on nutrients, vitamins, minerals in order to support thyroid health is, as well as the throat through allergy and the mucous membranes, is really the focus of this system. Thank you.